Welcome back to From the Pages. Now let me tell you a story.
I've made it no secret that I first got into comics through the X-Men animated series, and then branching into the comics. And much of the appeal for me was the wide breadth of X-Men related comics at the time. The X-Men had essentially franchised out by this point, and there were a lot of mutant related books coming out around the time I got into comics. But about a year after I dove headfirst into comics, I found out that a brand new comic was coming out, and I got to be on the ground floor of its release. Keep in mind, this was the early 90s. In 10 years' time, a new #1 issue of a major franchise book would not be uncommon. But back then, that was special. And most importantly, this new book, Generation X, would feature young teenage mutants just like me at the time. I mean, teenage, not mutant. I'm not a mutant.
So imagine my excitement in 1996 when they announced a TV movie for Generation X. I was elated. I mean, finally, some of my favorite characters in live action. TV live action, but, I mean, how could they screw this up? I mean, it's not gonna be horrible, right? Right? I can take your ominous quiet as an affirmative, right? Please? Oh, crap. First up, a quick recap on who or what Generation X is.
The original X-Men series only loosely resembles what most people think of the X-Men today. The themes of racism was only rarely touched upon directly. The team consisted of a modest 5 members versus ever-growing balloon it would become today, and with nary a Wolverine in sight. But one of the more consistent aspects has been there from the beginning. The idea of the school for mutants. For kids, school is pretty much the center of their life, and who doesn't imagine finding a place where you can be accepted for who you are and be allowed to grow and become awesome?
Just saying is all.
It's something the X-Men keep coming back to, first with the original cast, then the New Mutants in the 80s, and Generation X in the 90s. Featuring X-Man Banshee alongside Emma Frost, a somewhat reformed villain known as the White Queen, teaching a group of kids, including X-Men sidekick Jubilee, along with a new bunch to represent the next generation of mutant kind, with guys like Chamber, Husk, Sync, and Penance, fighting enemies like the human sentinel robot hybrids Phoenix and the Executioner, a vigilante who attacks mutants he thought guilty of a crime.
Did you get all that? Good! Now forget it all as we watch this slop.
We open to a New World Entertainment logo.
Oh, that means Roger Corman's somewhere behind all this. And that means that the budget's gonna be about on par with mine. Look, a special effect. Are you amazed?
We're then given the definition of mutation, and whoa, an illegal genetic condition. I know the divide between mutants and humans has always been a central theme, but generally they've gone down the route of making them oppressed minorities or wanting to force them to register with the government.
Making mutants' very existence to be flat out illegal changes the dynamic from the comic completely. They are no longer facing prejudice or bias, but rather legalized persecution. In that type of scenario, Magneto's acts of terrorism makes sense to me. Do you understand? I am not 30 seconds into this, and I want to sympathize with the villain.
However, I could only wish that we had Magneto as the villain. Instead, we have Matt Frewer as Russell Tresh. Yes, that Matt Frewer of Max Headroom fame. Tresh, who's not based on any character from the comics, is introduced as he and his assistant are going to cut into the brain of a young mutant. I think his power is to wear unfortunate sock puppets. But in bursts Emma Frost, the White Queen.
Aw, hell yeah. Emma Frost from the comics is a no-nonsense bitch in all the best ways. With her powers of telepathy, the bad guys won't know why do I set myself up for disappointment.
No, instead, the would-be victim is arrested for being an unregistered mutant. Tresh walks away with a slap on the wrist, and Emma uses her mental powers to make bad lighting and fans blow before leaving. Wow, she really showed nobody. Apparently nothing of interest happens for 5 years as we cut to the home of Angelo Espinosa, who's leaving home to go to a new school. His codename is Skin. Can you guess why? Also, check out the look on his sister's face. This isn't the face of a sibling unwilling to let her brother leave. It's the face that my cat gets when he's pulled the legs off of an insect. 5 years later, Trish has given up his evil mad scientist ways, but for something much darker and more sinister. Corporate marketing. More specifically, he's developed a subliminal messaging technology that makes consumers more likely to buy their products. But now he wants to develop a special chair that will let him travel into the dream dimension where he can enter people's heads and truly change how they think.
If you don't understand why this is stupid, I'm guessing you're not that familiar with the X-Men and what they're supposed to be standing for. They're about fighting for a world that hates and fears them. Not standing up to a 2-bit...
Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, what he said. Wait, did the movie just acknowledge what it's ripping off? Who directed this? Jack Shoulder? The director of Nightmare on Elm Street 2? Oh, I just made my brain sad.
Trish then goes to the mall to observe how his subliminal advertising is doing when he spots Jubilation Lee, also known as Jubilee, also known as the white girl cast into the role of an Asian character. Trish observes Jubilee's mutant power of shooting fireworks while playing an arcade game, and her being taken in by some really fast-responding security officers. But more importantly, this scene features an X-Men arcade cabinet in the background. Now, we never hear a direct reference to the X-Men existing in this universe, but the school is called Xavier's, and there are references to superheroes existing. Which begs the question of who designed the game. Was it a group of subversive counterculture designers hoping to promote mutant tolerance? Or perhaps a government-funded method of downplaying mutant terrorism?
I am Magneto, master of Magnet.
Or am I stalling just because I'd rather be playing that game than watching this? You be the judge.
Emma gets a report of Jubilee's arrest and she responds with her co-instructor, Sean Cassidy. No, this Sean is known as Banshee, and it's a shame I can't place his subtle accent.
Could we talk to you for a wee moment? But I'd stick to manipulating weaker minds just to keep your record perfect. No you don't, darling. You're coming with us.
Ah, what a day for Lucky Charms. The marshmallowy part of a complete breakfast.
Emma and Sean, after talking to Jubilee's mother, agree to help keep Jubilee out of a mutant internment camp by having her join the Xavier Institute. Using Emma's telepathy, they manage to get Jubilee out of jail. One awkward car ride later...
Training you to be a superhero?
Well, I have to wear one of those, goofy superhero costumes.
They pick up Angelo from the bus and it's off to school. Meanwhile, Trish reveals his fiendish plan. I think.
Can you comprehend the commercial possibilities for a free market omnipotent super being?
He rattles on about taking mutant brain cells to do more than just enter people's minds, but blur the lines between dreams and reality, and yeah, is anyone really caring at this point? Sean and Emma take Angelo and Jubilee to the school. Then we get to a rather weird, squick-inducing scene. Banshee tells Jubilee that she's got to get undressed to do a full-body imprint. Yes, Emma is the one who examines her, but it's behind a screen that looks slightly less than shoulder length. Jubilee looks about as uncomfortable as possible, while Skin leers on from across the room. Need I remind you that she's only 15 years old in this film?
I know that I have a black belt in being awkward around women, but even I question the wisdom of having naked jailbait being stared at by a guy whose power is that his skin stretches.
After whatever the hell that was, Skin and Jubilee meet with the rest of the students. M, Mondo, Refrax, and Buff. M you might recall if you watched my recent review of the X Factor comic, and is played just about as bitchy as you could imagine a teenager with the power of perfection would be. Mondo is also from the comics, though his power to absorb materials has kind of degraded to him basically absorbing density from it, so he becomes super tough and durable. Buff and Refrax were new characters created for this film. They are likely stand-ins for Husk and Chamber, whose powers would be way beyond a TV movie's budget. Buff is super strong and causes her musculature to appear distorted, so she wears baggy clothing, and Refrax can shoot lasers from his eyes and is developing his X-ray vision. The kids get along about as well as you could expect from this movie, which is to say they're almost all immediately unlikable and Banshee has to break up a fight. What follows is a lot of padding. Kids talk and have class and hang out and train, again, while being mostly completely unlikable. The plot does kick back in, though, when Skin and Jubilee find a textbook that talks about the dream machine that Tresh is trying to recreate. Later, the kids go to town and wacky hijinks ensue. We see Buff's mutant power to be replaced by a male bodybuilder when filmed from the back. Mondo and a townie get into an eating contest because of proving how macho a burst stomach is? I don't know. And Skin takes up stalking as a hobby, as he eyes a girl he likes from down the street and into the restaurant she goes into. I don't see this leading into anything bad. Later, Skin decides to hack the school's computer to access the secure room. Where did he get such mad computer skills?
Check it out, Lupita. Let me show you a little something I picked up when I ran email for the Vario Local gangsters.
Yeah, I got plenty of exercise running the email across town. But then someone found an AOL disk in the trash and I was out of a job. Who can compete with 80 free hours? Skin hacks the computer and gains access to the locked room containing Emma's dream machine. Meanwhile, Tresh is trying to sell his corporate masters on his version of the dream machine.
And get them to buy any product I tell them to. They are powerless to stop it because these impulses come from their subconscious. See my point now, Mr. Harlan?
They're naturally a bit dubious, but Tresh thought ahead to supply a convincing demonstration.
Each member of this board will have an involuntary gastric eruption.
Okay, let's just sweep over the whole lowest common denominator fart jokes aspect. I mean, shouldn't expect better from this film by this point. No, instead, let me focus in on, was that really your plan? To make them fart will get you funded somehow. Okay, points for creativity, I will give you that. I mean, it's not like you have a machine that can implant suggestions into people's minds or anything.
They are powerless to stop it.
Elsewhere, Skin shows Jubilee the dream machine and they go off to try it out. Jubilee goes first and visits her parents' dreams, but is interrupted by Tresh, who is seeking her out. She's so creeped out by him that she wakes in screaming terror. Skin, seeing a visibly upset Jubilee, does the mature, responsible thing and says, "I gotta try this out," and straps himself in, where he, again, shows his caring nature by dream-stalking the blonde girl from town. Tresh appears.
Russ Trash, what's your handle, good buddy?
Tresh influences the girl to swoon over Angelo, but gets interrupted when the cops break into his place and disconnect him from the machine. Turns out powerful CEOs don't really care for fart jokes. Who knew? This would have left him a vegetable, but Skin saves his mind from falling into the void forever, and Tresh flutters off? Jubilee and Skin pretty much laugh off Tresh invading their brains.
I cosmically shit my fucking pants.
Ah, he was righteous with me.
You're sick. We better get ready for class, though.
I haven't talked much about the other kids, mainly because Em and Mondo really have nothing to do here. Em just acts like a bitchy prima donna, and Mondo as a chauvinistic alpha male. Refrax and Buff do have a flirtation going on, and I'll be honest, it's one of the least bad things in the film, but mainly because it's rather trite and obvious instead of being awful. Yes, the girl with body issues goes out on a date with the guy with x-ray eyes, and if you don't see where this is going, allow me to sum up. If you ever use your mutant power on me, I'll cause you grievous bodily harm. Wanna make out? 'Kay. Making out's pretty awesome. Just hope my powers don't kick in the wrong time. Is everything okay? No, I totally didn't see you naked. Bro? Dude, I totally just saw Buff naked. Bro! Now all I have to do is hope that Buff doesn't overhear our conversation. I totally just overheard your conversation. Bro. You said it, Mondo. Let's go get drunk, despite us being supposedly underage and in a public area. Skin meets up with the girl he likes, Kayla, who is now totally into him. It's good to know that even in the fast-paced world of the 90s, you can still get an old-fashioned romantic story like non-consensually entering someone's mind and influencing their emotions.
Seriously, I hope I don't have to explain why this is awful. Going into someone's brain and altering how they feel towards you is the act of a villain, not a hero. I wouldn't be so upset with Skin if he learned a lesson or was punished in some way, but he is not. This whole film, he goes through and doesn't learn a single thing. What type of lesson does that teach our kids? Parents, I implore you, teach your kids responsible use of the dream dimension.
The townies don't much care for Skin making the moves on Kayla, not that I blame them, leading to pretty much the entire class getting into a brawl and arrested. Emma tries to expel everyone, but Banshee undermines her.
But these children got a tough road to hoe, and a little compassion on our parts won't kill them.
Yes, it will. I've seen it before, Sean.
You can't keep blaming yourself for the loss of the hellions.
They were my students. I mean, maybe if I trained them harder, they'd still be alive.
I actually don't mind the scene much. As opposed to Monet, Emma actually is shown as having a reason for her frosty exterior, and really, you get the impression that both Sean and Emma care for these kids in their own way. It's not much, but at this point, I'll take what I can get. Skin, still proving he's learned nothing, goes back to Kayla's dream, but Skin's interrupted by Trash, whose consciousness has been stuck in the dream dimension since his body was disconnected. He tries to implore on Skin's good nature to reconnect his mind to his body, but Skin gets concerned when he finds out that Trash is being kept in a prison hospital. Well, I'm glad there's some line that you won't cross. Though to be fair, Trash doubles down on his bad guy credentials.
And if that doesn't work, how would I mind rape this sweet little sister of yours? Mind rape this sweet little sister of yours.
The award for the most evil scumbag in a superhero film goes to... Russell Trash! Russell, you just proved that you're a bigger piece of shit than world-conquering dictators, genocidal maniacs, and agents of chaos. What do you have to say?
Sleep tight, little chipmunk. Store your nuts in your cheeks.
Ha! You truly are a psychopath.
Skin reluctantly agrees to help and breaks into the hospital and puts Trash back in his body.
I liked it so much, I bought the company.
However, the mind rape threatening villain shockingly betrays Angelo.
What do you want from me now, man?
Your brain.
After the commercial break, Trash has tied up Angelo and is ready to operate on Skin's brain in order to alter his own brain to develop psychic powers. Apparently that's a thing you can do. But Skin is able to tap into his latent psychic abilities, which is again a thing apparently all mutants have, and contacts Jubilee, who lets Sean and Emma know what's going on. They get ready for war, but Emma worries.
So what is it you're not saying?
Something I'm really worried about. If Tresh has spent this much time in dream space, he may have already mutated and developed the X Factor. If he did that, he could be too strong to defeat.
You're just pulling plot out from your ass now, aren't you?
Emma is able to use her psychic abilities to allow all the students to physically enter Tresh's dream in order to save Skin in reality. It gets all really fuzzy here, folks. I won't lie. I've watched this more times than I care to admit, and I'm still a bit lost on the plan here. The students start to attack Trash in the best possible way, attacking one at a time. You know, at this point, I realize that the kids' powers badly overlap each other. Between Mondo, Buff, and M, we've got 3 mutants who basically just toss Trash around. Even though their separate mutations are supposedly different, it makes the end fight seem much more samey and lame. Anyways, Banshee knocks Trash out of the dream version of the building and into dream space. But it turns out Emma's fears were correct and he's mutated powers of his own. And what does he do with this newfound power? Flickering lights and wind machine!
Psychic powers are really disappointing. I think by this point, I'd just rather be the sock puppet mutant.
Emma tries to get the kids out and threatens to take down Trash by going down with him.
Just you and me falling forever through the abyss. I don't think I'm ready for that kind of commitment.
But Skin sacrifices himself to save his teacher, knocking Trash into the void of dream space. We're allowed to ponder his noble sacrifice for about 30 seconds before Skin's hand stretches out from the void and rejoins his team. They all leave, apparently forgetting Skin is still tied up in a building elsewhere in the real world. The last few minutes is the kids playing a bizarre card game, and then we see...
Well, kids, what do you think of your new uniforms?
Not in a million years.
Can I go back to being tied up by the madman? The last shot is Trash back in the prison hospital. His body's still comatose, but still tied to the dream dimension in hopes of returning for series that would never happen. Thank you, mutant Jesus.
So that was Generation X. And boy, that was a rough one.
Despite all the many qualms I have, the biggest issue is with the wasted potential. This script is mostly unsalvageable. 90% of it reads like an old man trying to be hip. The few scenes that do actually work are quieter, character-driven scenes, and a lot of that is mostly carried by the actors, who are generally speaking not too bad. The actors who play Skin and Jubilee, Buff and Refrax, and Sean and Emma actually all had chemistry with each other, and you could see that the same actors could have possibly carried a series under better screenwriting. The plot is nonsensical, and I strongly suspect that this is a reworked draft of someone's own original screenplay that never got produced and stretched into fitting the comic book license. This might have made for a ho-hum episode, but as an introduction, it doesn't touch on any of the core aspects that make the X-Men and their spin-off titles noteworthy. There's almost no bigotry or prejudice at work here, no mutant terrorists. Instead, we get a mad scientist/evil marketer. And on the subject of the villain, I love Matt Frewer and usually look forward to seeing him and stuff, but everything is turned up to 11 with him, which admittedly makes him probably one of the more entertaining parts of the film, as the actor seems to be having fun, and I have to admit, some of his one-liners, likely improv by Frewer, did make me smile on occasion. It's just that he feels so out of place with everything else that was going on around him. There's eccentric, and then there's just Looney Tunes. And it doesn't help that he's forced to say this line.
How would I mind rape this sweet little sister of yours?
Which takes him from giving a quirky performance to just filling me with disgust.
Generation X has never been officially released on video, though that said, if you know where to look, you can find it online easily enough. That said, I can only recommend it to the most curious X-Men fans or people who love terrible movies. It's not the worst I've ever seen, but as an X-Men fan, I'm just so heartbroken over the lost potential. We'll get back to the X-Men franchise at another time, but until then, remember these words of wisdom.
I cosmically shit my fucking pants.
People try to put us to down, talking about my generation, just because we get around, talking about my generation. Things they do.
I had the worst dream that I just reviewed Generation X.